You are not born to simply play a part in someone else's story. You are not a title, not a role, not a duty. You are a breath of the universe made conscious, and yet, somewhere along the way, you began to believe you had to earn your worth. And so begins the quiet tragedy, not of failing, but of forgetting your rhythm, your voice, your wildness, your wonder. But today we remember. This is not a speech to tell you what to fix, but a mirror held gently up to your spirit to remind you of what you already are and what you are becoming, not with urgency, but with awareness, not with pressure, but with presence. Stay until the end, not because I promise you a list, but because somewhere in these words you might find a key that fits the lock you've ignored for too long. Now, let's begin. Self-awareness is not the same as self-judgment. It is not the inner critic whispering, "You should be better," but the quiet observer who notices, "Ah, so this is what I am doing." Most people live their lives as though they are reading from a script handed to them in childhood, never once asking who wrote it or why they keep reciting it. And so a woman, brilliant and infinite in potential, may reduce herself to roles: wife, mother, professional, friend, until the roles wear her thin. But self-awareness, true awareness, is the moment she steps off the stage and watches the play from the balcony. It is not detachment, it is deeper presence. To be aware is to see without recoiling, to notice the irritation, the joy, the jealousy, the calm, and not immediately seek to change it. It is the art of sitting with what is. Not to fix it, not to label it good or bad, but to understand it. Imagine how liberating it is to feel anger rise and not run from it or apologize for it, but simply observe, there is anger, not I am angry. That single shift is the difference between being consumed and being conscious. When a woman begins to practice this level of awareness, her world subtly begins to reorganize, reactions slow, clarity deepens, the space between stimulus and response becomes a doorway instead of a trap. It is tempting to confuse awareness with control, but they are not lovers. Control manipulates, awareness illuminates. One tightens the grip, the other opens the hand, and it is in that open hand where all transformation begins. The paradox is this: when a woman stops trying to fix herself, she begins to change, not through force but through alignment. She no longer strives to become who she thinks she should be. She unfolds into who she already is. That unfolding is not loud or dramatic. It often happens in the quiet moment when she chooses to listen instead of defend, to breathe instead of react, to stay present with the discomfort rather than run from it. The world does not owe you stability. It has never promised calm seas or quiet skies. Storms will come, not once or twice, but often, and in those storms the invitation is not to escape, but to learn how to dance with the wind. Grace is not weakness, it is strength that does not shout. It is the art of remaining fluid when life hardens around you. When others scream, grace is the whisper. When life accelerates, grace is the pause. Not a retreat, but a chosen stillness. You are not only a mother, not only a daughter, not only someone's something. These are garments you wear, beautiful but temporary. The soul underneath those roles does not need a name or label. She simply is, and to improve is not to polish the roles until they shine. It is to remember the one who wears them. Remove the masks not to rebel, but to breathe. The truest version of you is not found in mirrors, but in moments when no one is watching. We have misunderstood strength. It is not always loud, not always forceful. There is power in a woman who does not need to armor herself to be seen. Softness is not surrender. It is knowing when to bend so you do not break. A river does not fight the stone. It wears it down through persistence and presence. You do not have to roar to be heard. Sometimes the softest voice is the one that reshapes the world. To improve each day is not to follow blindly, but to question gracefully. Who said you must do it this way? Who said your dreams must come second? Creativity is rebellion in its highest form, a refusal to accept a colorless life, to paint outside the lines, to speak when silence is expected, to dare to write your own script. Every day ask, am I living or am I complying? And if the answer troubles you, Good, that is the door. You are not a machine. You do not need to optimize. You need to rest. You need to feel. You need to dissolve the myth that burnout is proof of ambition. Self-renewal is not indulgence. It is wisdom. The tree does not apologize for winter. Why should you, every day, create space for stillness, for silence, for something that nourishes without demanding? Light a candle, close your eyes, breathe. You do not need a reason to return to yourself. You do not owe everyone access to your energy. To set a boundary is not to reject others. It is to protect the sacred within. Let your no be clear and unapologetic. Let your yes be whole and joyful. A woman who honors her limits is not limited. She is empowered. Each time you protect your space, you send a message to the universe. I am worthy of peace. The world is loud with advice. Everyone thinks they know what you should do. But deep within you, there is a compass, quiet and ancient, your intuition, and it does not speak in fear or logic. It speaks in knowing. Practice hearing it again. It is that subtle pull, that unexplainable nudge. Follow it, even when it makes no sense to others. Especially then, you are allowed to receive joy, love, support. Not because you've earned it, not because you've proven enough, but because you are here. Many women give endlessly but struggle to receive, as if worth is measured by sacrifice. But giving and receiving are two wings of the same bird. Let someone hold the door, let someone praise you, let the universe bless you, and say thank you, not I'm sorry. You are a masterpiece in motion. A poem still being written. Do not wait to love yourself once you arrive. There is no finish line. Improvement is not becoming someone else. It is becoming more truly yourself. And every day you have the chance to look in the mirror and say, she is not perfect, but she is growing, and she is worthy, right now as she is. The world does not owe you calm, and chaos is not your enemy. It is simply the natural state of a universe in motion. Mountains rise and fall, rivers flood and dry, stars burn and collapse, and in the midst of this wild, eternal dance, you walk with your own rhythm. To expect stillness outside is to fight the very nature of life, but to find grace within, that is where true peace begins. Grace is not the absence of pain or conflict. It is the way you meet it. It is the poise in your posture when your heart is breaking. It is the clarity behind your eyes when everything around you demands confusion. It is not about pretending to be fine or dressing up your struggle in a smile. Grace is deeper than performance. It is presence. It is the moment you breathe, not because breathing is easy, but because it is sacred. When the world spirals, most people tighten their grip. They try to control, to hold on, to force things into place. But grace is not found in resistance. It is found in surrender, not to failure, but to flow. A woman who practices grace each day does not need to control the storm. She learns to stand still in it. She learns to feel everything and still not become it. She learns to cry without apology, to speak without fear, to fall without shame. That is grace, not perfection, but fluidity. It is the dance between what is and what is possible. A woman who walks with grace does not collapse under pressure. She bends, she adjusts, she breathes, and in that breath she finds herself again. People often confuse chaos for a sign that something is wrong, but chaos is not a mistake, it is a mirror. It shows us where we're holding too tightly, where we're trying to force outcomes, where we've forgotten our center, and grace invites us to return, not to escape the noise, but to rise above it, to look at the mess and still choose beauty, to hear the screaming world and still whisper truth, to sit in the fire and still see the stars. There is no rule book for how to move through chaos, but there is always a choice to harden or to soften, to fight or to flow. Grace is not a technique, it is a trust that no matter how loud the world becomes, your silence can still hold power. You are not only a mother, not only a daughter, not only someone's something. These titles, though cherished and real, are not the entirety of your being. They are costumes worn in the theater of life, useful, beautiful, but ultimately temporary. Somewhere along the way, many women begin to confuse the role with the self. They become so entangled in the identities assigned to them that they forget who they were before the world told them who to be. But the truth is, long before you were someone's partner, someone's friend, someone's label, You were a living, breathing, sovereign force of nature. Letting go of roles is not about rejecting responsibilities or withdrawing from relationships. It's about realizing that you are more than any single role can define. It is about stepping out of the costume at the end of the day and remembering the skin underneath. Most of life is performance. You learn how to smile when you're sad, how to say yes when you want to scream no, how to shrink to make others comfortable. But what if the truest version of you is not the one who pleases others, but the one who walks barefoot across the earth, unfiltered, unafraid, and unassigned? To improve each day means to peel back those layers, not all at once, but with gentle curiosity. Not to abandon who you've been, but to reclaim who you've always been. There is a profound freedom in saying, I am not just this. You begin to see that all your roles are simply expressions of something deeper, something infinite. And the moment you stop clinging to who you think you're supposed to be, space opens up for who you truly are. This shift doesn't happen in grand declarations or dramatic escapes. It begins quietly, in the moment you pause before saying yes. In the silence you gift yourself before reacting. In the questions you begin to ask, like, what do I really want? Or who am I when no one is watching? That is the start of letting go, not of love or duty, but of illusion. Every day is a chance to step a little closer to your center, to loosen the grip on the roles you perform and find the freedom in simply being. Not performing, not pleasing, just being. We have misunderstood strength. We have wrapped it in armor, forged it in resistance, and mistaken volume for value. But true strength is not the absence of softness. It is the courage to remain soft in a world that expects you to harden. A woman has been told, directly or subtly, that to survive she must become steel. Be tough, be cold, be unbothered. But what if strength is not the clenched fist, but the open palm? What if it is not the ability to endure without breaking, but the wisdom to know when to bend? The willow survives the storm not because it resists the wind, but because it sways. In every moment of softness there is a deep intelligence at play, one that does not seek to conquer, but to connect. When a woman chooses compassion over control, empathy over ego, she is not stepping down from power. She is stepping into it. We live in a culture that often equates feeling with weakness, but to feel deeply is not a flaw. It is a gift, and it is dangerous to those who profit from disconnection. A soft woman sees beyond the surface, listens beneath the words, and holds space for healing. That is not weakness. That is revolution. She does not harden herself to be respected. She respects herself enough to stay open, to cry when she must, to walk away when something no longer honors her, and to love, fiercely, fully, even if the world calls it foolish. Softness is not the opposite of strength. It is its highest form. To be soft is to be permeable, not passive. It means allowing life to touch you joy, grief, wonder, doubt, and still choosing to show up again and again without building walls. That is a wild kind of bravery. And each day a woman can choose to soften, not because she is weak, but because she no longer believes that numbing herself is noble. She chooses vulnerability over victory, presence over protection, truth over the performance of power. In that choice, she discovers a strength that does not need applause or armor. It simply is steady, quiet, and deeply alive. To question is to awaken. Most of what we believe we never chose, we inherited it. 1,000 whispered expectations from family, culture, religion, society. How to dress, how to speak, how to smile politely even when we ache. And yet there comes a moment, silent, slow, or sudden, when a woman asks, but what if this isn't me? That question is not rebellion in the way the world defines it. It is not loud or reckless. It is creative. A quiet undoing of what was never truly yours. Creative rebellion is not chaos, it is creation. It is the moment you stop living on repeat and begin composing a new rhythm. It is a daily act of courage to break the patterns that keep you small, not because you are angry, but because you are ready. This kind of rebellion does not seek to destroy, but to redefine. It takes the raw material of your life, your wounds, your desires, your dreams, and shapes it into something real, something that belongs to you. It questions the script that says you must be useful to be loved, that your value lies in what you produce, how you look, or who you please. It whispers, what if worth is not earned, but remembered? And so each day becomes a canvas, each choice a brushstroke. You begin to live not from habit, but from intention. You wear what feels like you. You speak when silence used to hold you hostage. You try things not to prove anything, but to feel alive. The world may not applaud this. It rarely does. It prefers the woman who stays predictable, manageable, agreeable. But the woman who chooses creative rebellion does not need applause. Her reward is her aliveness, her peace, her truth, and it isn't always easy, this path of rewriting your way of being. You will lose things, approval, comfort, the safety of the known, but you will find something far more precious. Yourself, not the self that was shaped by fear, but the one that was waiting beneath all the shoulds and musts and don'ts. And when you find her, even for a moment, you realize this isn't about breaking the rules for the sake of it. It's about remembering you were never meant to live inside someone else's lines. You are not a machine. You were never designed for constant output, endless giving, or self-erasure disguised as productivity. And yet, how often do we measure our worth by how exhausted we are, how much we've done, how little we've rested? Self-renewal is not a luxury. It is a necessity as vital as breath, but it is not taught. We are taught to strive, to perform, to prove, to keep going even when our bodies whisper stop, even when our spirits sigh beneath the weight of another obligation. The woman who chooses to renew herself daily is not selfish. She is wise because she knows that a burnt-out woman helps no one, not her children, not her partner, not her dreams, and certainly not herself. Renewal does not always look like long vacations or grand rituals. Sometimes it is 5 minutes of silence in the morning before the world begins to ask for pieces of you. Sometimes it is choosing to walk instead of scroll, breathe instead of speak, say no instead of explain. Renewal is not about escaping life. It's about meeting it differently, from a place that is full rather than fractured, a place that remembers your essence instead of chasing your image. The tree does not bloom all year. The moon does not shine every night. The tide does not always rise. Why then must you? There is sacredness in stopping, in letting your shoulders drop, in saying, I am not available for everything and everyone today. It is in these moments of deliberate pause that something deeper returns, a kind of clarity, a softness, a remembering. You begin to hear your own thoughts again, not the ones echoed by the world, but the ones that belong only to you. You begin to feel not just your fatigue, but your longing, and beneath that longing is life calling you back to yourself, not the version that performs, but the one that simply is. When you practice self-renewal, you make space for that woman, and you allow her to rise slowly and surely from beneath the noise, not to conquer the day, but to inhabit it, fully, calmly, and awake. You do not owe the world your constant availability. You do not have to be everything to everyone. You do not need to shrink your needs to fit into someone else's comfort. Boundaries are not walls that keep others out. They are doors you choose when to open. A boundary is not a punishment, it is an affirmation. It says, this is who I am, this is what I can offer, this is what I will not allow. Every time you set one, you are not being rude or difficult. You are being clear, and clarity is one of the highest forms of love, because it refuses to pretend. It refuses to twist yourself into a shape that hurts to hold. It refuses to continue cycles of resentment and quiet self-abandonment just to keep the peace. Peace that costs your inner stability is not peace. It's quiet desperation wearing a mask. A woman who begins to honor her boundaries begins to feel her power return, not all at once, but in small, sacred moments. The power to say no without guilt, the power to say yes without pressure, the power to pause, to reconsider, to walk away. And still, the world might push back. It will test you, ask you to explain, to justify, to soften your stance. But the truth is, a boundary does not need a story, it needs your conviction. And with time, the people who truly love you won't leave because of your boundaries. They'll stay because of them, because they'll know you are not performing connection, you are protecting it. It takes practice. At first, it feels unnatural, maybe even selfish. But that's only because you've been taught that love means self-sacrifice, that kindness means compliance, that being a good woman means being endlessly accommodating. But no more. You get to unlearn that now. You get to choose a different rhythm, one where your energy is sacred, not spent, where your time is chosen, not taken, where your heart is open, but not unguarded. Setting a boundary is not about distance, it's about dignity, and every time you do it, you teach the world how to treat you, not with demand, but with deep and unwavering respect. And so, dear woman, this is not a checklist, it is a quiet revolution. Not something to master in a day, but a gentle unfolding, a remembering of what you've always known deep within your bones. To improve every day is not to chase perfection, but to return again and again to the truth of who you are beneath the noise. You are not here to fit in, you are here to wake up, you are not here to perform, you are here to feel, to grow, to unravel, to rebuild, and each of these 10 things is simply an invitation to live more fully, more honestly, more freely. The world does not change when women become what it expects. The world changes when women remember their power, reclaim their space, and rise, not as versions of what they should be, but as who they already are. Let this be your beginning.